Washington, D.C., home of the President of the United States, and also residence of the true king of cocaine, Rayful Edmond. To truly understand how Rayful Edmond became the king of cocaine, to understand the legendary story of his rise and fall, being the largest distributor of pure Colombian cocaine during the mid and late 80s, and making $300 million a year at the age of 22, we'll have to take you back a few generations in his family. Before Rayful was born, members of his family ran the largest illegal numbers operation stretching back to the early 50s and 60s in Washington, D.C. When Rayful was born on November 26, 1964, his family had expanded their criminal enterprise into the drug game. Rayful was introduced to the game of dealing drugs at the early age of 10. This is the story of his 14-year rise of power, money, murder, and the 4-year investigation that led to the fall of his enterprise, brought down by the ultimate betrayal of two of his closest friends.
Walk down any street in Northeast Washington, and people will tell you here he was the reigning king. Two adults who knew how he got his money. He was also a man to be feared.
I never remember controlling drugs or people.
Georgetown University document Senator Alonzo Mourning has been subpoenaed to appear in the Rayful, the government's star witness, outweighed Denver.
Continued references to
People go around saying a lot of things about people that don't hear the truth. He could have been my father, but because he say something, I mean that he telling the truth, even if it's about his son.
Prosecutors claim that the alleged cocaine organization turned those streets into the city's biggest open-air drug market.
That had been hauling in $1 billion a week. They booked brothers, sisters, cousins, aunts, and the man who controlled them all, 24-year-old Rayful Edmond.
Rayful Edmond III.
Cocaine kingpin Rayful Edmond.
Rayful Edmond III is charged with heading the city's largest cocaine ring.
When he made that statement to me, he was letting me know that the price went down 3,000. It went from 19th Street to 16th Street. So I automatically knew what he was talking about.
Edmond is accused of running the biggest drug ring in the city's history.
You know I'm up to something. Just as common sense would tell you. If you got good common sense, it would tell you that I'm up to no good.
Edmond is accused of running the biggest drug ring in D.C. history.
wiretaps of a conversation between
FBI. Get off. I need to talk to you. It's emergency. Yes. All of us.
Hello, this is the AT&T operator with the collect call. Who's calling, please?
Okay. While attending Hamilton Junior High School in 1975, Rayful Edmond met Royal Brooks. Although Royal Brooks wasn't raised in the same surroundings as Rayful, they established a very close friendship with each other. For Rayful, Royal was an escape from his chaotic life at home. Although Rayful looked up to Royal for the accomplishments in sports and with school, Royal looked up to Rayful for his street smarts and hustling ways. Yet as a youth, the family business caught up with Rayful. When Rayful was 10, he worked with a few members of his family, dealing in illegal prescription diet drugs. By the age of 13, Rayful began making money for himself by selling marijuana and PCP, which he did off and on leading up to his graduation from Dunbar High School in 1982. Facing life-changing decisions after graduation and seeing his friend Royal Brooks move forward in life, Rayful was inspired to also continue his education and attended the University of the District of Columbia. Very quickly, however, Rayful became bored with the slow pace of the world of academics and returned back to the fast pace of the streets. Despite the fact that after high school the two went their separate ways, they maintained a strong friendship. Royal Brooks moved to North Carolina to continue his education by attending North Carolina A&T University, majoring in business.
They were close friends even before their days together here at Dunbar High School in Northwest Washington. Today, key government witness Royal Brooks said at first he tried to protect Rayful Edmond through his own deliberate cover-up from getting indicted for leading a cocaine conspiracy. Under pointed questioning from Edmond's attorney William Murphy, Brooks admitted he lied.
When I first met Royal Brooks, you know what I'm saying, Ray introduced me as a good friend. You know what I'm saying? Say he was a school buddy, and they was real close to high school or something. They would say he was real smart in school. I remember that, you know what I'm saying, real athletic, but I ain't had no dislike for him, but he really, you know, we didn't really bond like that. I just respected him as really, you know, one of really good friends.
Shortly after graduation from Dunbar, Rayful turned to selling cocaine full-time, immersing himself in the drug game. His first location was set up just a few blocks from his grandmother's house on 5th and L and 6th and L Street Northeast. With business growing, he was able to recruit family members and friends to start a small-scale operation. Although some members of the family weren't engaged in the drug activities during the early 80s, they eventually started helping Rayful with his fast-growing business, with cocaine being the drug of choice during the early 80s, and with Hanover Place being the largest open-air drug market in Washington, D.C. at the time, the profits of the Edmonds operation appeared minimal.
At today's session, an old family friend of Rayful Edmond's sister testified that she stored large quantities of cocaine, as much as 20 kilos at a time, at her home on Capitol Hill Northeast.
And who was testifying in return for having drug charges against her dropped, said she had seen Edmond in the neighborhood several times, getting in and out of a long-stretch limousine. But she added she had only talked to him in passing.
Claims members of the alleged Edmond drug ring provided the drugs. She said Edmond would call her as often as every other day, telling her to bring portions of the cocaine to the alleged headquarters of the operation at 407 M Street in Northeast.
On October 29th, 1985, the Hanover Place operation was shut down after the arrest of its drug kingpin, leaving the market in desperate need for new suppliers to meet the existing demand. With Rayful quickly realizing the great opportunity, he moved his operation a few blocks over on the Mortons and Orleans Place Northeast. During the early stages of his business, Rayful used local motels to have a place to bag cocaine for retail on the strip of Mortons and Orleans Place. Products were dropped off on a daily basis to lieutenants that handed the products out to the runners.
In the early 80s, in the area of Morton and Orleans, it was like a drive-in store, basically. You drove up, got what you wanted. Both those were one-way streets, very narrow.
You can go around there day or night and just walk up and see those guys selling half ounces, whole ounces, 50s, 20s.
A lot of traffic going in and out constantly. It was just difficult to police until they put a lot of efforts into it.
Officer Marcello Muzzati used blown-up photographs of the area to describe the alleged drug activity. He said an alley between Morton and Orleans was littered with trash, sofas, refrigerators, motorcycles, and foot-high tripwires to slow down cops chasing after drug sellers. He said trash was removed from the alley twice daily, but that sometimes within the hour, more trash would take its place. Muzzati used a neighborhood resident's apartment as an observation post, and one time he said he saw 40 to 50 drug transactions within an hour and a half. He said the cocaine was wrapped in newspaper in bundles about the size of golf balls. He said the suppliers would come out of 656 Orleans Place and toss 4 or 5 bundles of cocaine to the sellers. He said it was so busy that sometimes buyers had to wait for more bundles to come out. He identified the defendant as one of those distributing the cocaine and collecting the money from the sellers. He also identified the defendant, a brother of Rayful Edmond, as someone who drove through the neighborhood warning sellers that police were in the area.
Officer Muzzati also testified that he had seen another one of the defendants in the neighborhood. Muzzati said he would yell when police would enter the neighborhood. Muzzati said he would use the term olere, Pig Latin for rollers, which is a street term for police.
During the mid-80s, Rayful was paying his runners in the range of $1,000 to $4,000 a week. So much so that everyone in the area wanted to be a part of his operation.
How much would he pay a 14-year-old to do a little street work for him?
It would vary. I mean, some of these kids would make $500 a night, sometimes they make $5,000 a week.
20-year-old said he bought large quantities of cocaine from Rayful Edmond to sell, paying $10,000 per half a kilo. The witness said he made so much money selling drugs, he wore a medallion with a 7.5-carat diamond, and he owned 7 cars by age 17. He was arrested by an undercover DEA agent and is now in federal prison serving a 12-year sentence for 2 counts of cocaine distribution.
And my job was, as an undercover officer, to infiltrate the Rayful Edmond organization. In certain instances, I would go to the house, purchase drugs, get to the highest point in his organization as I could. And that means starting low. I started buying drugs outside until I got close to whoever was in the house, and I could go in the house and buy drugs and talk to different runners and different mules in his organization.
In the mid-1980s, one of the many places where hustlers commonly ate was the Florida Avenue Grill. It was in 1986 when Rayful Edmond met a middle-aged white female by the name of Alta Ray Zanville outside of the Florida